Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debate. This is the Championship podcast, and we're talking about the playoff scramble, which includes about 25 teams, even though it's a 24-team league. So plenty of chaos. And by the way, apologies for those watching the live. We've had a bit of chaos, a bit of a power cut literally seconds before we were about to hit record. So that wasn't ideal. Apologies to the guests as well, having to juggle things around a little bit. But lovely to be joined now, as always, by my co-host, Mr. Ollie Mann from Sheffield United Way. How are you, Ollie?
I am buzzing. I've obviously had a very nice weekend. Really enjoyed my Sunday.
Get up to anything nice. Go for a walk in the park. Have a cup of coffee with friends.
We watched some Stranger Things. I saw my wife. Saw some sort of family friends. Battered Wednesday. It's just all the usual stuff for a standard Sunday. I had a lovely weekend. Thank you very much, Gav. I mean, high spirits for the first time potentially all season.
Absolutely. Well, less high spirits is Chaps after a defeat at the weekend. Millwall fan, of course, from Chat with Chaps. We'll start with Millwall, Chaps. What? Not great form at the moment. Do you have a sort of a theory on why, after having been brilliant in the first 3 months of the season, form's perhaps dropped off a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most obvious one is injuries, and appreciate that. I think a lot of Championship clubs can say that, but I do think we're in a really unique position where we have, I believe we now have 11 or 12 players out that all could be first team starters. The list grows every single game. So quite frankly, I think we've only been able to put out a side that I would say is anywhere near representative of our first 11 once or twice this season. And when that's out, we look like a really good side. However, when you're, at best fielding half of those players, we look bang average. And I think that Portsmouth just show you there is no easy game in the Championship, and you can get found out, particularly when you don't do the basics and when you don't have a cohesive unit, which is very difficult to have when you can't name the same team twice in a row. So I think that's kind of where we are. I think unless we can sort those bits and pieces out, I know this is a playoff scramble, but I don't really see us being in a playoff position for much longer if we can't sort out some of those injuries.
A big thing that stands out to me, chaps, is the right back spot feels like a bit of an area of weakness. It might be through sort of absentees. I think you've been without Ryan Leonard at times when you had to rotate. I thought Wes Harding struggled at his old club a couple of weeks ago. You've obviously had to fill in. You've preferred to keep Tristan Kramer at centre half, I mean, I think he's probably a better right back than your other options, but he's also probably a better centre half than your other options as well. So hasn't been easy for Alex Neil.
No, it hasn't. I think that, if we just look at the game against Portsmouth, Jake Cooper was suspended. So he had to come out of the side, which meant that Tristan had to go into centre back because he had to partner Caleb Taylor, which meant we either played Wes Harding at right back, who, as you rightly said, had a torrid time against Birmingham, or we played Danny McNamara, who'd been injured for 10 months, and we opted for the latter. So I think that tells you all you need to know in terms of where Alex Neil sees Wes Harding at the moment. Every single week brings a different challenge. We then had Zach Sturge go off with concussion, so he's going to be unavailable for the next week. Derek Mazu-Sako has just been confirmed he's out injured for 3 months. And then Joe Bryan got himself sent off. So there's another 3 problems for the next game. So it's crazy. And yeah, of course, you can look at it and blame Lady Luck, but I think you need to look at it a bit deeper. You can't have a situation where up to 24, I think it's 24 different players at different times have been injured. And we're how many games? 16 games in? Crazy.
Ollie, I mean, Millwall have gone with a very youth-based recruitment policy in the summer. On the one hand, there's a lot of excitement that comes with that, a lot of high-potential players, the promise of maybe following the Sunderland model, I suppose. On the other hand, that can come with some inconsistencies, can't it?
Yeah, it's always going to come with difficulties, with potential inconsistency. I think as well, it had been such a sustained run of brilliant form from Millwall. Since Alex Neil had come into the club, I think it's one of those stats I quote semi-regularly. I think you'd won up until sort of the end of October, you'd won the third most points of any team in the league over the 12 months before that. It was only Bristol City and Coventry who'd been above you. Away from home, I think you were averaging almost 2 points a game since Neil had come in. It was just a fantastic run. That it's such a shame that it is injuries, but I think you're right, Gab, and I think it comes back to that. If you've got the right levels of sort of experience, squad depth, you then overcome these. But for Millwall, it's really difficult to be in that position. They're not a team that's got parachute payments. Southampton, United, Leicester, we might go, oh, we've had some injuries. But then you go, yeah, well, okay, bring your £5 million man off the bench, or what you're moaning about. It's not that situation for Millwall. And it really shows that for clubs who are trying to bridge that gap and really trying to there's one thing about smart recruitment that gets you there. And I know Chaps didn't want to blame it, but there's also something about that look. And there is something about how you keep the squad you've got available to you fit, how you keep them going game after game. And unfortunately, it just looks to be biting Millwall at the moment. And it could be that recruitment strategy in the summer, looking at some of those more youthful players, yeah, maybe there was another way of doing it. But on their day, they're a really good team. And so it's hard to find that balance.
If I may as well just jump in there, I think that, of course, we're going to these sort of younger players to fit the model. But of course, that comes with a lack of championship experience, which at times can pay dividends because they're unknown quantities, but at times they're not used to the pace of the league and the levels. And I think that you're seeing potentially an outcome of that. Not to necessarily say we should switch that, but to your point, mixing it up a little bit in terms of recruitment, I think is really important. I think the other thing as well, Alex Neil's sides are very high intensity. They're very high press. We are officially the best team in the league for winning high turnovers. So that just lends itself to a more intense, sort of workout on a more regular basis, which I think could also have an impact. And then the final thing I just sort of say as well is we have won once under Alex Neil, and I believe in the last 12 months when we've conceded first. That tells you all you need to know, that is just something that if we concede first, we just do not seem to find ourselves getting back into games. And that is a systemic problem that Millwall have had for a long time now. Does that eat into the mentality of the group, the experience level of the group? I don't know what it says, but that's a stat that we need to correct.
Absolutely. Chaps, just before I let you go, do you think Millwall are going to make the playoffs this season?
You are talking to the most pessimistic Millwall fan there is. No, I don't. And I think that we've come close for a number of seasons now, using different methods under Gary Rowett as we are now under Alex Neil. And I think we'll come close again. I really do. But I don't think we'll be in the top six this season. But I think what we're trying to do from a sustainability perspective is to keep progressing year on year. Now, that doesn't always lend itself to improved positions in the table. But I think that the aim for the club is in the next 2 to 3 seasons to really start to challenge at the top end of the table. And in reality, if you look at the last sort of 4 or 5 games, our position of 7th in the table is a little bit outdated because it's based on other teams around us not winning.
How can a league position? So well. It's a current league position. How can it be outdated?
Well, I guess if you look at the last 5 games, I would imagine we'll be in the bottom 6. So
of course.
It's kind of that element. But again, I'm a pessimistic Millwall fan. So other Millwall fans listening to this might be screaming, saying, come on, mate. And who knows? We get all our players back. And, the second half of the season, which notoriously is better for Millwall. Who knows? But at the minute, if you had a gun to my head and said, will we be making the playoffs or not? I would say we'd be narrowly missing out.
Okay, well, look forward to catching up with you later in the season. Thanks a lot for joining us, chaps. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Top man, chaps.
So my next guest this evening is Martin Sanders from Football Martin. Thanks a lot for joining us. Really appreciate it. 3 wins on the spin for the Saints. Eckert's doing a fabulous job, isn't he?
Yeah, he's done really well. Got a great group of players to work with. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, he's definitely got a tune out of them. He's made some little tweaks that have made all the difference. I think detail on the training pitch is what we're hearing, certainly sort of like through a couple of the media outlets that are very close to the club, that his detail on the training pitch is having a big influence on the performances on the pitch. And you're certainly seeing it. the first 25 minutes I saw at the weekend was the best I've seen of a Southampton side since I can't remember. We're going back to Ronald Koeman era. It was that good. I was literally blown away with how well we played, but the confidence we played with, seeing that we've had such a rough start to the season. It was real credit to Eka, and fair play to him. I'm really, really impressed.
Absolutely.
In terms of his role,
yeah.
I was just going to ask, in terms of his role, Eka, how long do you see him being the interim for? Are you looking at an opportunity? Do you expect a manager before, say, Christmas? What are you looking at in terms of timeframes, or what are you hearing from the club at the moment in terms of that search?
My gut feeling, from what I'm hearing and what people are saying, I think he get the job. I think if he gets a result against Leicester tomorrow night, I think he's in pole position for the job. He's been brought to the club by the sporting director, Johannes Spors. He brought him in to oversee the under-21s with the view that he would be Will Steele's successor long term. I don't think they expected it to ever be so soon, but he was definitely being groomed for the position of first team manager, first team coach. A lot of people sort of like in German football say it was a steal that we've got him in as a under 21 manager. It's highly thought after. I'm pleasantly surprised with what he's done so far, but I think he'll end up with the job. Ollie, my gut feeling is that he will end up with the job.
One thing I wanted to ask Martin is, I think if I was in the club shoes, I certainly wouldn't rush to make an appointment, but I also wouldn't rush to commit beyond this season. I could maybe see myself giving Eckert the job until the end of the season, because he's definitely proven to be the best person to manage Southampton right now. But I'm also very wary of making huge commitments on the basis of impressive caretaker stints, just because I think there's a lot of variables at play, including the fact that Southampton did create a lot of chances under Will Still and maybe weren't very clinical. And maybe there's a degree of variance coming into it here where you're possibly due a period of being a bit clinical, as well as, of course, we have to give Tonda some credit because you do look a little bit different as on top of that.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't go rushing into making an appointment. I'm still very much that you need experience, whatever happens. I think, if he does get the job, he needs bodies to come in and around him, you would think. Whether that's the right thing to do, I think it is. One fan said to me at the weekend, well, it didn't work with Will Steele, and he obviously, he had experienced staff around him. Adam Lallana played at the highest level. He was on his staff in that backroom team, and I think you need experience. I wanted a manager that had been there, seen it, and done it at championship level. There's not loads around. I think that's probably the big thing. There's not loads of managers out there at the moment. Maybe they've had an eye on somebody that's still in work. I thought that may be the case. But yeah, I wouldn't go rushing it. And like you say, I'm very much with you, Gab. I wouldn't go committed to anything beyond the season. No, they give Will Steele a 3-year contract, and it was a disaster. Russell Martin got an extension to his contract at the start of the Premier League campaign. He got another 2 years on top of the year that he had left, so it is another 3-year deal. And I just think you have to be really mindful about just dishing out contracts for fun.
Yeah, I think one thing that I wanted to touch on, Martin, was the day first start for Cameron Bragg, because this is someone who's been around the academy previously. I think he's had loan spells at Crawley in the past. And there's been a sort of a bit of a lean period, I suppose, for Southampton's academy, in that it wasn't churning out these prodigious talents at quite the same rate over the last 5 years or so. So is there an excitement around Cameron Bragg off the back of his performance at the Valley?
I think there is now, yeah, definitely. His performance is really good. I watched him playing the under-21s a couple of weeks ago against Real Madrid, and he looked a great little player. He's been in and around the first team squad. There's a few that might break through. He's been the under-21 captain. But I love the way that he stepped in and played at the weekend to make his senior debut. We talk about tests, and everyone says, oh, well, Southampton need a test. Well, up until the weekend, Charlton looked to me on paper like a real test because of the way they've started the season. They let a lot of goals in, they let 12 in. They put you under a lot of pressure, play a high press. And he went into that team and he done really well. He played alongside a young man in Casper Yander as well, who's very new to the British game. And between the two of them, they dictated a lot of Southampton's really good play. Adam Armstrong was phenomenal at the weekend. I can't speak highly enough of Armstrong's performance. His best ever in a Southampton shirt, by the way. He was absolutely phenomenal. But the two in midfield and the way that Bragg stepped in and delivered what he did, it was absolute credit to him and Tonda for having that belief to play him. I thought it was a really solid performance from him. I'm excited by him. Really excited.
Yeah, I think that is really exciting. I think for me, it's that statement from Eckert, from the manager, to say, actually, you know what, Flynn Downs is going to stay on the bench. We are going to put our trust in this young man coming through, making sure that we're giving him these opportunities. And I think that's something that is really difficult when you're a team coming down from the Premier League, when you're a team who obviously has got such high expectations, even after sort of a difficult start to the season. I think it's fantastic. Do you think we'll see him stay in that role now? Do you think he's earned the shirt? Obviously, Shea Charles out injured. There is an opportunity for somebody like that coming in. Or do you expect to see him and Downs almost interchanging over the next few games, sort of trying to get those more experienced players back up to speed?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting now because there's no doubt he was brought in to play at the weekend because Downs was going to play against Leicester, and they wanted probably the more experienced player to play against Leicester, and that pretty makes sense with their midfield. I think he's put a real stake in to keep his spot now. That's because of his performance was that good, but I think that was what was probably in mind. We got a bit more competition in that area where we've not had it. Obviously, you spoke about Shea Charles, and that injury was a big blow. Flynn Downs has struggled with illness and suffer with his stomach sort of like over a long period of time now. I struggled to get him really, really fit. They brought back Ori Romeo, who's going to be a really, really good addition. He went under the radar a little bit. He signed a couple of weeks ago. He was a free agent, and he's coming back to the football club. They've got to get him up to speed, and he's probably another week and a half away from being ready to sort of step in and play first team football. So I think the competition's there, certainly really good. Shea Charles, his contract's ticking. They're pretty keen for him to sign a new one. There doesn't seem to be any sign of that happening at the moment, but I think he will probably be one of the most sought after players within our squad come January, because I think clubs will come circling. Cifuentes will be the next big name. I think he could be the superstar of the Championship this season. I think he's that good from what I've seen of him. Fellows is amazing. I've been really impressed with Tom Fellows, but Leo Cifuentes is a step on from Tom Fellows from what I've seen so far. His performances since he's arrived, he's not had a bad performance. He's 8 out of 10 and more in every single game that he's played in.
Yeah, that when you find that consistency, that's always impressive. I think Pinazas is coming to his best and looking like the play he brought as well. So that's really exciting. With all that in mind, then, Martin, do you think you're going to make the top 6?
Play like we did Saturday consistently and have everybody bang up for it, I think we'll be in with a really good chance. But we would have to play like we did Saturday consistently. I think that will be the key to it now. You know, play like we did for the opening 13 games, we're having absolutely no chance. But I have seen a few signs of improvement. I think 2 big tests this week. The Foxes at home tomorrow won't be easy. Leicester are a good side, and they're just starting to come good. Millwall away at the weekend. I was here, and they've got a few injuries. I think tomorrow night's a test because we struggle against Leicester at home normally. We will need to put in a really good shift tomorrow, and if we could get a result tomorrow, you could start to think playoffs might be on here. But there's a bit of a way to go. The squad of players is there. I just think they need to execute it now and get themselves in a position where we're right in the mix come December, back end of December. Then you can get to the window. And I always thought we were going to need maybe 3-4 windows to really sort the squad out, and that's what the manager will need to do. Whoever that manager is, it will need a good few windows to get it sorted. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can get it right in January. Martin, thanks so much for talking to us.
Welcome.
And look forward to catching up later in the season.
Guys.
Cheers. So my next guest is Ollie Hargreaves from the Butter Pie podcast. Ollie, thanks for waiting. We've been delayed a bit slightly. I don't know if you caught the note. But just wanted to ask you about North End's playoff prospects. Obviously, dealt a slight blow by that 2-1 loss at Blackburn, but overall, it's been wildly impressive from Paul Heckingbottom's side.
Yeah, I don't think you would have ever said that at the start of the season. I don't think I'd have ever been expected to be a part of a quote-unquote playoff scramble.
I know. I was booking you in for the dogfight chat, Ollie.
Yeah, no, completely understandable. Yeah, I think going into the start of the season, obviously with North End's turgid form at the end of last season, I think that probably gave a lot of people understanding about where North End probably would be. We were riddled with injuries, and obviously so forth have come back. It's been surprising. We picked up big points against teams like that have been relegated, and I always think the best time to play relegated sides right at the start of the season. You're able to probably nick a few points, and then obviously we got 7 from the relegated trio at Deepdale. So if someone told me after this point in the season we'd be where we are, I'd have called them stupid. So it's been fantastic. Heckingbottom and McCall have to take huge credit into it, but it seems like we've just hit a bit of a buffer at the moment in terms of injuries. I know that's all a give or take, but you're losing your main part of North End squad in the strongest part in the midfield. North End had Harrison Armstrong, they had Ali McCann, they had Ben Whiteman, who were the strong, resolute midfield who could probably challenge against one of the best in the league. I've said it before. I thought Harrison Armstrong's the best number 5 since in the Dean Zidane. So now we're going into Watford with Ben Whiteman suspended, Alan McCann and Harrison Armstrong injured. So you're going to have to chuck in someone like Jordan Thompson, who's just come back from injury, who's not played for us ever. So he's not going to, he's not going to play longer than 60. And you got Stefan Ford-Arson, who had an absolute...
Big Steve, you call him.
He's Big Steve, but he might as well not be Big Steve. He might be Little Steve. He was abysmal against Rovers. He was like playing with 10 men. We've got to have these players, especially in the next 2 games of Watford away and then Sheffield Wednesday away at the weekend, where you've got to have these players. I know Ollie's had a good time on Sunday away. But you've got to have these type of players around the squad who, probably were first team players last season to step up again. It's, so to speak, it's time for, to put the cat amongst pigeons and see who will last. We are where we are, and fingers crossed we keep on, plugging away.
Paul Heckingbottom, Ollie. He's doing a fantastic job at Deepdale, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was actually... I was asking the Sheffield United, Ollie.
This one, right, that's okay then. Yeah, I mean, Paul Heckingbottom has obviously got... he has a lot of sort of baggage, I think, that comes with him sometimes. And there are some fans who think he's fantastic, and there are some fans who sort of talk about him in terms of his motivation and sort of take a little bit away from him tactically. But I think we're really seeing here that he's getting the most out of this team. He's found a formation and a sort of way of playing that really does seem to have not just developed the club, but developed the players within it as well. I was at Deepdale a few weeks ago when we played Preston. And one of the things that impressed me more than anything else was the difference that I saw in players who I've watched last season, who I've watched even play for United in the past, like Dan Jefferson. And all of a sudden, they're like different animals. They look physically fitter. They look stronger. They look faster. I do think it is a recurring theme with Heckingbottom teams. I talk there about the physical development of a lot of these players. When we had Heckingbottom as manager, we did struggle a lot with injuries at this time of the season. I think there's a high intensity to the play, a high intensity to the training. And obviously you do see that sometimes affect the team. And maybe that's a reflection where you'd look at some changes. But I think I've been so impressed with the way you've set them up. And obviously, it just looks like a manager who really is ready to take Preston on a really nice journey. Now, the question is, how far does that go? And I know, obviously, Gab, you'll come to our final question later on, and we'll get Ollie's opinion on exactly where we see Preston is sitting. But I did a show yesterday with Simon from the Cov Pod that we've been looking at our score predictions, Gab. And I said Preston are the one team that I can't get a finger on in this division at the moment. Whenever I predict Preston to lose, they win. And whenever I predict them to win, they lose. And so what I'll do for you, Ollie, for the rest of the season, I'll have you to lose every week. And that way you can ride that journey all the way into the Premier League.
Yeah, I'll appreciate that. But as you mentioned there, Daniel Jefferson, he had a torrid time at Watford last season where he couldn't have done a lot worse, to be fair. So it's probably written in the stars that he scores tomorrow night. I don't think there's ever been anything more, promised that Daniel Jefferson's going to score. But yeah, he gets the most out of his players. And when Jefferson was brought in, we're like, really, is he really going to set it? Like same with Alfie Devine. We played at Plymouth Argyle a few seasons ago. Didn't really set the world alight, and here they are. Alfie Devine's been probably one of our best players this season, and Daniel Jefferson's just starting to become the main man, especially obviously with the Osmite situation being taken out for 9 games. It's now down to Daniel Jefferson probably to be the main man to lead the line up until January at least.
One thing I really like about this North End setup, Ollie, the Preston Ollie, I'm going to call you Preston Ollie from now on, is the sort of balance, because although you play with wing backs, I imagine you've got Odelafire, who's right wing back, who could tuck in to play right back as a conventional right back. You've got Andrew Hughes, who's left centre half, who could play as a conventional left back.
Yep.
And you've got Thierry Small, who could play further forward. And I do see a kind of a synergy about those 3 players that possibly allows you to flip formation and adapt to different challenges within and between games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very easy in terms of the players that obviously what we had in Andrew Hughes. He's very flexible, playing left centre back, can play left back, can play wing back, but you're struggling at that stage.
Yeah.
Odelafire, we brought him in probably to be right centre half, but Story's been superb this season. He's probably got on to the tail end of his form and now got injured, so Odelafire been playing out at wing back, obviously with injuries to Paul Valentin. So, O'Fire's probably going to go back into right centre back, but he can obviously play a right back as well. And it's very easy, in a back 3. If you're just going to bring another centre half on, you move Andrew Hughes to left back, you move Odelafire to right back, and you have someone coming alongside, who I probably think Lewis Gibson if he's fit. And it's also one of those where you could probably change it and have Thierry Small play right back. You could, have him playing right mid. You could go to 4-2-3-1. There's plenty of different ways. And another thing that Heckingbottom's probably brought in is, strength and speed. He's brought in athletes. Daniel Jefferson, Thierry Small, abundance of pace. And it's what we were missing last season, because it looked like, if North End tried to play on the last man, it looked like our strikers were running treacle. We brought in Michael Smith. He's probably another that probably looks like he runs in treacle. But we've got big, strong athletes that, we're set up to be horrible to play against. You look at the statistics. I know Sky did a big sing-song and hoo-ha about it in their preview to the game, where North End's possession stats, etc., shots are 24th and 23rd. We're not here to be pretty. We're not here to set the world alight. We're just here to get the best out of our players and the performances and be clinical. And realistically, there's only one statistic that matters, and that's the final result. And that's the way North End have naturally always been. We're a low possession based side. We saw that under Neil. We saw probably under Lowe. I know Lowe probably tried to play a bit more possession based football, but Heckingbottom's realised what we have and what we are. We don't have loads of money. Let's just play to our players' strengths and not try to look too pretty.
Makes a lot of sense. I've got to ask you about the fire chance, if you've come up with anything, because there's so much potential with this. Like, can't start a fire without a spark. There's a fire within my soul. So many options that you could go with.
I don't think one's actually stuck just yet. I think it's to the fact that we've got so many different options. There's not one that's probably going to stick, but it feels a bit harsh just having 4 songs potentially for one person just because his name's all right. But yeah, to be fair, a lot of them could probably have chance. it's got to be one that can't start a fire. It's probably going to be my favourite one, and probably link it back to Blackpool as well, because what else have we got to sing about? We're North End. We naturally finish 14th every season in the Championship. We've got to make some fun of it somewhere. But yeah, I mean, I can't probably fathom how well the signings have probably been, because I was at coming into start the season thinking this is naff. We brought in naff, and players have shown up. They've done fantastically. We've signed Jamal Lewis as well as a free agent until January. I think that'll probably get extended to the end of the season. I think he's done well enough. And he's another from Watford who's probably going to start and probably have a great game. But it is what it is. Obviously, the Osmite situation isn't the greatest, but it is what it is. Sure. He's been missing 17. He will be missing 17 games over the past 2 seasons for stuff that he can control, and it's not good enough as a Championship player. Whether that's on whatever comes out or whatever, but to be missing for 17 games of something that he can control and not do, it's not a good look. So I expect North End to probably massively change up again in January, and then going into the second summer of Paul Heckingbottom.
Do you reckon he'll make the playoffs?
I mean, I expected us to finish 20th going into the season, Gav. Realistically, every game we play now, I'm still looking at the bottom 3 thinking, we're getting a couple of points above them. But that being said, I wouldn't have expected, obviously I expect Wednesday to be down there, but I wouldn't have expected Sheffield United or Norwich to be in the bottom 3 either. So who knows? It's a crazy season. North End might end up down there again. I don't expect us to get playoffs. But I think we'll be a lot well off than a couple of predictions at the start of the season. I think we'll probably sit in nice and pretty in our lovely home of 14th. And,
hopefully a few places higher than that if possible.
Yeah, just push us a few places higher. That'll be all right. And then see what we have come summer, potentially a couple of sales, and then let Paul Heckingbottom have a bit of cash to throw around, because he's not thrown around an awful lot. I think we've spent about 1 million under him and brought in like 7 or 8 players. So who knows what we can do with smart recruitment with cash.
Absolutely. Ollie, thanks so much for talking to us, and look forward to catching up later in the season.
Awesome. Cheers, guys.
Brilliant. So we're joined now by Christian from the Hull and Back podcast on the Tigers. Christian, thanks so much for joining us. Do you what have you made of Hull's start to the season? It's I'd expected you to be good defensively and quite dry going forward, and it's been the total opposite, and you've sort of thrived on that.
Yeah. Unexpected, I guess, is the word that everyone's going to be using with Hull, especially with how we finished last season and obviously the games that everyone witnessed last season. Though obviously we survived on the skin of our teeth, goal difference, obviously. The one thing that kind of came from last season was Hull defensively, though we obviously conceded goals, but we did actually look quite solid at times. We just didn't have any attacking threat whatsoever, as you've stated there, Gabby, where goals would have obviously assisted in their way of actually getting those points. I mean, that would have been absolutely lovely last season, and especially the beginning of this season as well. Actually, even the gap between in the summer, we had obviously Ruben Sellers, Agent Ruben Sellers, as we're going to name him now for you, Ollie. Departure, but it wasn't. It was a 50-50 take from the Hull perspective on the fan base, because Hull, after obviously the previous season, wanted stability, which was something that we've screamed out for, and obviously another manager coming in. Even though kind of we want to say an unknown element of a new manager in Sergei coming in, he did come with a good kind of track record. I mean, obviously it was abroad, but I mean 2 points a game over the course of like every season is done is kind of it's definitely respectable.
But he also kept because he'd done some great work at dominant clubs where they're expected to win their league, and some people would say, not necessarily me, but some people would say, yeah, but it's easy to win with those teams. But he's also proven himself, I believe, with other teams such as Kayserispor, who were bottom of the Turkish league last season, and he took them to 13th with really good defensive work. So
and that's the thing. He had no money with that as well. I believe he wasn't even able to sign any players at that time as well, and to kind of turn a team around and keep him in and actually getting the points out of that, it's definitely respectable. And Sergei came in, I guess, like I said, neutral on the fan base side of things. So we were waiting to see, and when the preseason kicked off, and you kind of heard what Sergei was about and the kind of the style of football he was playing, it was extremely attractive to all the fans. And I don't just mean because obviously he was picking up wins and things. It was actually finally seeing players play how we knew they could play. Even like things like the redemption of Ryan Giles. We're going to call it redemption because, wow, I mean, the assists kind of side of things is lovely at the moment coming from Ryan Giles. And he was a player that I was ready to fill my car up with diesel and ship him where I needed to ship him to at the time. And I'm so happy that Sergei's come around and made that type of kind of openness with the fan base and won the fans over instantly with respect to like Hull itself, because we have gone through quite a bit. And then obviously straight after Sergei kind of came in and we are looking for this type of player and we are looking for that player. We get hit with the embargo of unable to purchase anybody, for a fee. So that obviously put another downer on the situation at Hull City. So what Sergei has done at the moment with being unable to actually spend any money, I'm not just going to say Sergei, actually. I want to actually credit Hull City's backroom staff as well for getting...
Dean Holden.
Dean Holden. It's unreal. It is absolutely unreal what they've done. The players have got in. I mean, obviously we can keep naming names like Ollie McBurney, Lundstrom, and so on. I mean, they're type of players that in the light of day we would never thought we would actually be getting. So, yeah, absolutely amazing work by them, and it's kind of paying dividends so far. Because Adrian's getting what he wants as well, with the words of being thrown about of heart attack football. So it is definitely heart attack football at the moment because, yes, we are scoring goals, but we are also conceding a lot of goals at the moment as well. Because it's very open. It's a very open style of football, and it has been acknowledged. But with the open style of football that we're playing at the moment, it is entertaining. I will say that it's very entertaining, and to finally get some home wins as well is just something unique to a Hull fan, I think, after the last few years. A couple of home wins, and the atmosphere is completely changed. There's a lot of optimism, would be definitely the word used, thrown about the club at the moment. I mean, it's hard not to be caught up in it, especially after last season. So the turnaround is just unreal. And I think I'm still a bit shell-shocked, I guess you could say, from how we're doing it. But you hope for it, but you don't expect it, especially like I say after the start, after the summer. It just wasn't expected, and the style of football that we're seeing at the moment, and kind of the support around the club, and the fans, and the fans and the players themselves, you can see the attitude in the players. It's completely different. That it's not just because they're getting the results. It's that smile on the face. It's the working for each other. And I guess that's the one thing that we're taking away from this season so far. So, yeah, it's really enjoyable to kind of keep going along those lines.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, no, it's great to see, and it's great to hear, to be honest. I think there is something really exciting about that approach and sort of really being able to buy into your football club again, because it's been some really up and down seasons, and obviously real difficulty in terms of, particularly last season, that change that happened over the summer. But do you think long term, because for me, I obviously look at this as an outsider, and I'll hold my hands up, I have been relatively anti-Hull this season. I won't pretend I haven't been. I predicted relegation at the start of the season. You know,
you're not the only one. You're not the only one.
Because she's like, but I think for me, I find there's something really exciting about a team who just want to attack a game of football. There's something that really makes you kind of want to root for them and go, you know what? Yeah, it might not always work, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Do you have any concerns? Obviously, it's a big run of fixtures you've got coming up in the next sort of 5-6 games. Some really tough challenges coming in there, none more so than tomorrow night and sort of Ipswich. Yeah. Does it worry you at all, that kind of approach? Are you expecting to see a transition, or do you think you're going to go out there and just attack teams like Ipswich, regardless of who the opposition is, and try and sort of outscore them, as it were, even with the talent they've got?
Yeah, no, exactly that, Ollie. That's it. That's exactly the word, outscore them. That has been the philosophy of this season. They may score, but our goal is to try and score one more than them. And it can be concerning with the amount of goals that we're shipping in. I'll be lying if I didn't say the fans weren't concerned, especially after the weekend loss as well. Although QPR were definitely worth their weight on their win, they really were, with the amount of chances that they had. It was still a case of, why are we allowing that amount of chances against our goal? I mean, to still get 2 goals out of it ourselves is still actually credit to Hull. But should we really be allowing that amount of attempts? No, we shouldn't. So, yeah, okay, the attacking, as you said, yeah, really love it. Love it. It's great football. It's really enjoyable. It's entertainment. It's why we pay our ticket prices. It's why we go to watch it, because you want to see football like that, end to end. And for a neutral, it must be great to watch. But on the side of, like, for us, are you asking, do we want it to keep going like that? Well, no, not really. We kind of want to ship it up a bit and close it off at the back. Yeah. And I can't say it's concerning to the point of where, oh my God, it's going to absolutely be our downfall of the season. But it will be the kind of, I would just wish we played a bit better that game, because that 2 points that we've lost, or that 3 points that we could have, had extra just because we tightened it up a bit more, could be the big difference. I mean, we know this very well, obviously, again, from after last season, or even actually, I hate to go back to this season, but when we had Liam Rossinho in charge, and we went through that run of draws, and we were throwing away games after being 2-0 up, 3-0 up sometimes. And it was a case of like, well, you've just thrown it away. You've lost us 2 points. And now we've just finished 7th outside the relegation zone. And I guess it's a trend that we're probably going to see again this season. But like I said before, God, it's entertaining.
Well, let's hope it stays entertaining, Christian, but for all the right reasons. Thanks so much for talking to us, and look forward to catching up soon.
No worries, mate. Thank you. Cheers.
We will be joined shortly by James McClare, but I wanted to bring in Locks from Blue Tinted Glasses of Leicester City. Locks, thanks so much for joining us, and I appreciate your flexibility on this. We did say 6. We've obviously been delayed, had a bit of a power cut. What's your take on Leicester's season so far? You obviously beat Stoke 2-1 last time out, but again, scoring 2 goals from 5 shots, it feels like it kind of almost sums up Leicester's season so far, in that it's been clinical finishing, or it's been amazing shots from outside the area, as opposed to necessarily creating tons of chances.
Yeah, clinical, mate. Clinical. No, I mean, like, I've been on with you now a few times, and I think every time I've been slightly less optimistic. Look, we know how football works. I think we're a few games away from either a relegation scrap or a playoff push, and I would still opt more towards the playoff push. I think there's serious problems in how we set up still. There's a lot of things that Marty Cifuentes needs to fine tune. We're just not creating enough chances. Game after game we say the same thing really, but the fan base is split at the minute. It seems to be a bit of a 50-50 between people who like or who want Marty to stay and who want Marty to go. I want him to stay because I kind of see this season as a transition season. I see Marty Cifuentes as a transition manager, if that makes sense. I don't see him as the long-term, 3-4 year manager of this club. I think I think he's come in at a crucial time, and I think he's going to bridge the gap to the next era of Leicester because, the summer was not. We weren't going to get a rebuild done in one summer. It was always going to take a couple of windows, and I think it's important to remember that Marty Cifuentes has spent £0 on players this season. He's the only Leicester manager actually under this current ownership. So, 14 years? He's the only manager to never be backed in their first summer window. So that's why I have a lot of, there's a lot of not credit in the back, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of leeway with me. I'm not calling for his head just yet.
Interesting. And I think, one of the things from that perspective is I'm sure the fans will be split on the ones who say, well, it's not had any money to sign. And then the others who say, well, this is a team that was in the Premier League last season. There's a lot of really top quality there, particularly attacking players. You look at Fatawu, Mavadide. I think there's a lot of talent there that fans will probably be expecting to try and get a little bit more out of. How important do you think it was, though, to get a goal into Patson Daka at the weekend? Obviously, he's had a torrid time of it since joining the club. He's really never kicked on, hit the heights. He's had a really difficult ask in terms of replacing Vardy and all of that. Do you think it's a positive sign that he's got his goal now? Maybe that could be the start of a run. Does that feel important to you in terms of shaping the season?
No. And the reason why I say that is because Patson Daka, we've said this 6-7 times over the course of his 4 years at the club. He goes on these massive droughts, goal droughts, and he'll score one and we'll all be like, okay, here we go, this is it, and it never continues. It would be great if it happened. It'd be great if he went on a bit of a run because more than ever, we need a goal scorer. We've got, I want to say three goals from our strikers this season. Ayew with 2 and 1 from Daka. That's it. And that's not enough. So yeah, I hope he can go on some kind of run. But honestly, no Leicester fan, I can confirm that is holding their breath for that.
Can I just ask, Locks, has Patson Daka had the creativity, people sliding him through to the extent that he would have wanted in his time at Leicester?
Yes, James Maddison. He had James Maddison for a long time.
With Patson Daka.
Yeah. Yeah. For two seasons. Patson Daka had James Maddison. And even then, when you look at under Kiernan Dewsbury, to be fair to Daka, he scored I think 7 or 8 goals in the Championship last time, which.
And also, by the way, Locks, you were sharing it with Jamie Vardy, Kelechi Iheanacho, and Tom Cannon. So there were 4 strikers competing for one position. And all right, Ollie, Cannon didn't get that many, yeah. But
absolute bagsman, Tom Cannon, Ollie, and no slander against him.
No, I hear you. I mean, Daka was, look, he came in at the club, and to be fair, it wasn't really it's only a bad signing in hindsight because when he came in, he was really highly rated. So, a lot of clubs were after
in Germany, hadn't he? And it's Zimbabwe.
Austria it was, and he played with Haaland. He was a 2 up top with Haaland for a little while. So, he scored 4 goals for us in the Europa League against Moscow. But other than that, mate, it's been woeful. Like I said, the Championship season 2 years ago, I suppose was a decent return, right? But mate, that was his first goal since December the 3rd last year. So that's all you need to know about Daka. He's just. Yeah, I feel bad for him because, again, he was highly rated. A lot of people thought he would go on to have a good career. And he may well do so at a different club, at a different league, wherever. But none of us are hopeful that this will continue. But he took it very well, to be fair to him. He took it very well, the goal. Little dink over the keeper. But yeah, to be fair, the only reason he's still playing, mate, is because of his press. He's very good at that. He can run all night. And that's why Marty Cifuentes is going with him at the minute, because none of them are scoring. So he's going to go with the one that runs the most. And that's why he's gone with Patson Daka.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, in that attacking 4, you've got Jordan James, who I think is another really good pressing player. Is that the identity that Marty Cifuentes is looking to build here? Teams that are aggressive against the ball?
Well, I hope not, because because we don't see it enough. I think no, you're right. You're right. I think the front four can press well. You know, you've got Fatawu, Daka, Jordan James, even Ayew. You know, he's a decent presser of the ball when he plays. But yeah, look, we try and play between the lines. I think we've got, you know, the most passes in the Championship this season, I want to say, if not second. The most short passes and medium passes in the division, the least long balls in the whole of the league. We were looking at some of the data the other night. I think at the minute, you know, we are still a team who seem to lack confidence. You know, when Enzo Maresca came in the first time we were relegated, he turned that ship around quickly. He got the confidence flowing through the team, and it almost feels like Marty Cifuentes just hasn't got that confidence into them yet. You know, it feels like a continuation, mate, of last season. Genuinely,
I mean,
it feels like...
I do think, I don't know if we can necessarily compare the situation Maresca inherited and the one Cifuentes, because I think they're very different, like in terms of the squad that Maresca had and the situation and the circumstances in which he had been relegated. Like in 22-23, I think your squad was way too good, and it was a bit of a drop off at the end, whereas you're awful for pretty much the whole of last season. So different circumstances, I would probably say. And
another big difference is Enzo spent 40 million quid on you know, bringing new energy into that team. You know, I mean, you look at who Enzo Maresca signed: Fatawu, Mavididi, Mads Hermansson. You know, he did make some massive, even a couple of the loan signings. It was fresh, I think, blood. 7 million. Yeah, we won't talk about him though. He's garbage. But no, it's Enzo had that luxury. He already had a very good squad, and he added to it, you know, players who hadn't gone through that traumatic, you know, relegation. Whereas Marty Cifuentes, yes, he's got rid of a few. Yes, he's brought in a couple of loan signings, but the core of that squad are the team that have been relegated twice now. And you know, when you've had Wout Faes and Yannick Vestergaard at the back for 4 years, you know, what else can you do?
Ollie, do you see Leicester finishing the top 6, or just a little bit unconvincing for you?
Unconvinced. I think they will. My gut still says they probably will, because I think there's enough quality in that team that, you know, we're talking about, you know, a poor start, difficulties that they've had so far, trouble adapting, and they're still, 1-2 points outside of the top 6. It's not that they're miles away. I think, you know, we've talked about 2 relegated teams on the show today. I have more confidence that Southampton are going to get there, if I'm being honest. I think they've got a much more sustainable uptick in their performance and their outcomes at the moment. I think you look at their squad and there's probably an extra element of attacking depth in particular there that really makes them stand out as an option. But yes, I think if I was a betting man, I'd be having Leicester in my top 6 at the end of the season. And I didn't say that at the start, so that's a bit of a change for you. Albeit that all of that probably has to be tempered with, we don't know what the off-field situation is going to be and how big of an impact that will have. Because if instead of 2 points off the playoffs, Leicester are suddenly 14 points off the playoffs, that suddenly is a very, very different maths that we have to do. But if it's decided on the pitch, Leicester will be one of the best 6 teams in the division.
Interesting. Do you agree with that, Lux?
Yeah, I mean, the latest talk from a couple of the experts are that the deduction is likely to be 6 points.
8 points. Okay. So 8 points off the playoffs.
Yeah, I think we're 1 point off. Well, we were when we played. I know that. Was there any more games after? I think we were 1 point. I'm not sure if we still are. We were 1 point off. But regardless, yes. And for me, you know, there was talk of 10, 12, you know, point deductions, and you know, the experts could be wrong. Let's say that. But if they are right, I think a lot of fans will be quite pleased with that from how it was looking. And I would agree with Ollie. Yeah, I think playoffs is still on. This is the thing with Leicester at the minute, mate. If I would not be surprised, and I genuinely mean this, I would not be surprised in the slightest if we, you know, won the next 4 games. Like, there's some tough games in there. We've got Southampton tomorrow. We've got Blades on the weekend. They are tough games, but it wouldn't surprise me if we did win a few on the bounce. We already got 2 on the bounce. We could be, you know, right back up there.
Do you know what it is, Lux? I don't think you're going to just miss out on the playoffs. I think if you get close to it, with the points off the back of the point selection in around March or April, you're in and around it. I think you'll get top 6 because of the quality that you've got. But I think there's also a possibility that the point deduction and unconvincing performances mean that you're too far off that when it gets to the crunch period. So I think you'll either finish in the top 6 or be a fair way off it. That's just my view. So we'll have to wait and see. Locks, thanks so much for talking to us, and look forward to catching up later in the season.
Yep, good to see you both, Ollie. Hopefully, I'll speak to you later in the week. I'll drop you a message, mate. We'll
drop me a message. Sounds good.
Nice one. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. And Ollie,
Cheers,
I know you've got a shoot now as well.
I have indeed, yes, because of our delays, my tea's ready. But lovely to chat. Always enjoy it. Always love chatting about the Championship. And go well, everyone.
Yeah, good luck against Portsmouth on Wednesday, and enjoy that Hillsborough victory for another couple of days.
I'll be milking that for as long as possible. I won't want to be in the office with me this week.
Not if you're Wednesday.
Yeah.
So delighted to be joined by my final guest, James McClare. James, thanks so much for talking to us. I'm slightly ironic that you were one of the first ones there, actually, and you end up being the last guest. So you've waited through a lot, so thanks for that. What's Birmingham starting to find form, right? 3 wins in the last 4, 3 successive home wins with 4 goals scored. Yeah, pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like we've kind of stumbled upon a winning formula at the moment, particularly at home, given we kind of toyed with different things towards the start of the season. There was players that perhaps weren't performing well, and then there was a struggle to kind of really find our spark in midfield and attack. But we've stumbled across something, perhaps by luck, perhaps by tactical changes by Chris Davies, but it's working an absolute blind at the moment. And if we can translate that into away form, which I'm confident that we will be able to, then we look at a real challenger for the top 6 and maybe even the top 2.
Yeah, it's certainly looking that way, especially with, how things are looking in terms of the top 2. I think if it was a higher bar like it's been in the last couple of seasons, I think we'd struggle based on, that form in the first third or first quarter of the season. But the way it's opening up, that it could be open for anyone, and we'll be in that conversation. But the big thing for me, James, I think we have to talk about is Marvin Dukes and his return from injury and the difference that's made to the team and specifically to Jay Stansfield.
Absolutely. I think there was a bit of work done by Ryan Deeney, a brilliant Blues commenter, and he kind of looked at Jay Stansfield's goals last season, and a lot of them came either with Lyndon Dykes on the pitch or with Lukas Djukovic on the pitch.
7 of the 10 open play goals he scored. Well,
there you go. You've got the stats to hand. And I think that is just a perfect summative of what Jay Stansfield needs. He needs people to take bodies away from him. Marvin Dukes has been absolutely sublime at that. He's also got excellent technical qualities. I think we spoke about it at the Millwall game, that the right-hand side combinations between Tommy Doyle, Patrick Roberts and Marvin Dukes have looked excellent, really, with Iwata bombing on past them and providing that extra space by taking men away. But I think Dukes is just allowing Jay Stansfield to be exactly what he is, which is a real nuisance, both on and off the board, and a brilliant finisher. I think you can't doubt that at this stage. I know he's had comments from managers in the past, specifically Wayne Rooney, who, for all his faults as a manager, is a great finisher himself in his playing career, that said, I think he said at one point, Jay Stansfield struck the ball too hard, too often, or something along those lines. But Stansfield is looking like a really cultured finisher, and the second one that he scored on the weekend was a prime example of that, keeping your composure in the right moment. So
maybe Rooney was right. Maybe his feedback was useful, and he's taking something from it.
Definitely. I mean, you can't say fairer than, I know he was a terrible Blues manager, but he's scored so many goals that I'm sure he knows a fair thing or two about finishing. I think Patrick Roberts has been absolutely crucial to the upturn in form. He's really brought a creativity off that right-hand side, which we kind of knew what we were getting with Roberts, in terms of he's been there and done it plenty of times in the Championship. Demarai Gray was fantastic on the weekend as well. So there's just creative sparks coming from everywhere. Alex Cochrane too.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you about Tomoki Iwata, because he's shown real adaptability to embrace a completely different role. I mean, I say completely different. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of parallels, but obviously playing right back is a bit different to playing central midfield, isn't it? But he does I mean, I'd describe him as a universal footballer, if that's not too swanky a term, James, because he's got this ability to be a conventional right back at times, and he's got the energy to get up and down. Sometimes he can invert into midfield and allow a Tommy Doyle to drive forward, which is great. Other times, there was one moment against Millwall in the first half where he actually arrived in a goal-scoring area centrally, just because as a result of all the chaos and confusion that his runs cause, and other players maybe being marked and him sort of profiting from that. So he's just got so there's a real flexibility about Tomoki Iwata.
100%. And I think we've kind of stumbled across that in terms of Ethan Laird got injured, which was a bit of a blow. And I think his importance has been put into perspective by the fact that Bright Asai Samuel has struggled in the first stage of the season after a brilliant debut against Ipswich to really fill that role, and perhaps doesn't have the running power or the kind of state of mind to get beyond the ball enough from what we want from a right back anyway. But Iwata, like you say, he showed last season from further distances that he definitely has good ball striking and a lot of goal threat. And we've found a way to utilise his role in build-up in terms of him inverting, like you said, to utilise his running power, getting beyond the wingers and creating space for Doyle and for Roberts and for Dux, but also his ability to threaten the opponents, get into the box and get himself into some really great opportunities. And I'm sure that he will end up getting a few goals this season. I know he hasn't found that golden touch so far, but I will be amazed if he doesn't end up, particularly if he keeps playing in this role with a few goals in the team. So I think that's been a real masterstroke from Chris Davies to put him out there.
Slightly different style Chris Davies has employed, James. In League One, it was a very pass by a 1,000 cuts, I suppose, in terms of we looked after the ball and we would sort of suffocate teams that way. And sometimes we wouldn't even necessarily create that many chances if we were in a winning position for a long period of certain games, but always be in complete control. I suppose in the Championship, the approach has been slightly different, a little bit more emphasis on cutting teams open and maybe being a bit more penetrative in the passing.
Definitely. I think you've seen that lately. At the start of the season, we probably were more similar to how we started and were for the majority of last season. We kind of struggled to create plenty of opportunities regularly. But lately, just the combination play down that right-hand side particularly, then you've got Gray and Stansfield, who are brilliant bursts of pace, and, Cochrane being able to get the quality of delivery. And we've managed to kind of source creativity from other areas. And like you say, quickly, that's been a real key thing, is that we've moved the ball forward more quickly. That was a big criticism for particularly the midfielders towards the start of the season. I remember against Wrexham, actually, was probably one of the turning point games for me, where in that first half on that Friday night, we were very sparsely passing the ball forward from midfield quickly. We were allowing them to sink back into their shape. Then in the second half, we were much better, a lot more emphasis on the forward passing. Mark Leonard was much better in that second half. And that's kind of been the turning point for me. I think I want to see it away. And I think Wednesday night, it's not tomorrow night, it's Wednesday night, will be a big test for that, because the Middlesbrough result, there was plenty of positives to take from it, but it was a little bit of a downer after a week where we had back-to-back 4-0 wins. And going to West Brom on Wednesday night, a team who are struggling a little bit themselves, it will definitely be a big test if we can replicate and stamp our kind of authority on the game. I do think we'll be able to do that, because partly I think the Middlesbrough result was more a Rob Edwards defiance from them. And there was a lot of talk before the game. How would they react? Would it kind of throw them into disarray, or would it galvanise them? It definitely galvanised them.
What you'd have wanted, James, is it to have been like a couple of days earlier where there were sort of murmurs that Rob Edwards might go, but it wasn't out in the open enough for him to not take charge. But because it was like AG Vivash and it was all to Edwards, that sort of probably motivated Middlesbrough. So maybe the timing actually wasn't quite right.
Yeah, 100%. It's easy to say that in hindsight. It could have gone the other way, and Middlesbrough could have been, looked aside out of sorts, but they definitely looked like they were right up for it. And I don't think we played that badly in the game. We did lose 2-1, and people may say we didn't create tons of chances, but there were definitely some moments in that game where it could have swung our way. So I'm hopeful that going to the Hawthorns, I can't remember the last time we were favourites heading into a game against West Brom. It's got to be for some time now. So I'm confident that given their struggles, and I think they might be the kind of opponent which kind of plays into our hands. They're quite slow and methodical in their build-up, and I think we're a really strong defensive team. They're not blessed with tons of pace at the back, and I think transitionally we could definitely carve them open. So I think it could be the kind of game that maybe sparks our season into life. With home form, I think only Coventry have got more home points than us, and if we can just even slightly improve the away form, we'll definitely be a top 6 challenger. And if we can substantially improve the away form, we'll be a top 2 challenger.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you about Mark Leonard, James, because you mentioned him there, and it felt almost like, as much as he gave a good account of himself in League One, I thought last season, sometimes in a more advanced role than I was expecting that we'd recruited him for, actually. But he was... it felt like a difficult ask for him. I think there were talk of, could he get a move to a top-end League One side in the summer, with Tommy Doyle coming in and Paik Iwata, all that kind of stuff. How well do you think he's done to establish himself in that 11 in his best position? Because I don't think that would have been an easy task for Mark, especially with Tommy Doyle also coming in and doing so well in his own right.
100%. You spoke about there, Tommy Doyle coming in. I think most people would have expected perhaps a different kind of midfielder to fill that kind of fourth spot. I think Leonard might fall into, whilst there are differences between him and the others, there are certainly a lot of similarities between him and Paik and Doyle. So I think potentially some may have seen that as a route out for him, but fair play to him. He stuck around, and perhaps out of fortune, because, Chris Davies is a massive fan of Paik and Ho, and, his injury at the Riverside was a big blow, but Leonard came into that game. I thought he did well at the Riverside, and again on Saturday he did well. He's had his critics at time, perhaps not passing forward, not being brave enough with his forward passing, and perhaps being a little bit safe earlier in the season. But I think he started to really assert himself. And we can't forget with Leonard that it's not been often that he's had a run of games in a blue shirt. He's kind of had to have his opportunities very sparsely because Iwata and Paik were so brilliant, and then Doyle's come in and started to warm up now. But I think
he's often been in the 10. Last season he was in the 10 role at least as often. He was playing in deeper midfield, I think.
Off the bench especially, he played various roles when he came on, and I think he had a run around the time where he played Newcastle in the Cup where I think Paik was injured again then, and he was sort of filling the void and looked like a good option in midfield. And perhaps now that with a solid run of games, and Tommy Doyle as well being up to speed is definitely a big part of that, because we know his quality at this level. Now he's readily available, match sharp, and I think that was what was lacking perhaps early in the season. He hadn't played a lot of football at the back end of last season. So I think now we've got both of them kind of getting regular minutes in the legs, and with Iwata at right back, there really isn't much depth behind them, and Paik injured, so it's kind of all or nothing on them. And that might be a blessing in disguise for them in terms of that security, that they know they can make mistakes and they might not be taken off, or, they have a bit more freedom to express themselves in midfield.
So earlier today, or maybe yesterday, content creator called Jack Ward, who produced some great stuff, by the way, everyone should check out his stuff, asked me which would be the 3 positions that I think Birmingham need to strengthen in January. And the answer that I gave, and I don't know if this was necessarily right, was I think we need another left back as a rotation option for Cochrane. I went for a left-footed centre-half, because if Newman was absent for any reason, I wouldn't mind seeing Clara on his natural side, because I do think it can be a challenge for him maybe sometimes on the left. And then I went for maybe a more of a physical profile in midfield. Would you agree with that, or would you go for a different profile, or do you think we actually don't need 3 signings in January and it's more about keeping what we've got?
I think the wiggle room will be tough in January in terms of we've probably got a lot of money locked up in wages in terms of the players that we do have. And, even say like the Damari Gray deal was technically a free transfer, but there was rumours that there was some kind of obligation that we paid towards getting him out of his contract in Saudi Arabia. So there will definitely be some issues to navigate in terms of the financial side of it. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Aaron Cashin recalled by Brighton, because his minutes look non-existent for the foreseeable. He's been pretty catastrophic when he has played, and I don't mean to be harsh on him, because again, he's had not a lot of football over the last year or so, but
Yeah.
it's been tough for him in a blue shirt. And Jack Robinson has obviously had a nightmare start. So, like you say, a left-footed centre half would definitely not go amiss to help in either shift Clara back over to the other side, or like you say, Newman's been fantastic. So maybe just as a precautionary one. I think if Lee Buchanan can get himself fit, then he would solve the left back issue. But again, I'm still tentative on Buchanan's fitness, because, well, he's proved a bit of a sick note over the last 2 years.
Wouldn't mind seeing Lee Buchanan go out on loan to a top-end League One side for 6 months and seeing where he is at, and sort of gauging the situation from there, because he's not played much football at all, has he? So
no, definitely not. And I think maybe regular minutes will be what he needs once he gets going again. I think we might be a little bit light out wide, just because you've got Roberts and Gray. I really like Kesh Anderson, but he hasn't consistently done it in his career at the top end of the Championship. So there is perhaps a little bit of a worry over whether he's at the required quality, say if there was a long-term injury to a Gray or to a Roberts. Lewis Kumas has kind of flattered to deceive a little bit at times.
He's not been in the team, has he, Lewis Kumas?
No, I think he's looked a little bit naive at times in a team that is so defensively resolute and so switched on. And I think he perhaps hasn't bought into that, even though he's brought loads of energy with him. So perhaps out wide, another concern is obviously if Marvin Duke was to get another injury, then you have Willem Williamson, who is probably the most like for like, but still there's a quality question there. And then Kyogo Furuhashi, who just hasn't hit the ground running, but again, there is still a player in there. So,
do you know what, though, James? I do see potential with Kyogo maybe off the bench when the football flows a bit more freely, and there's opportunities for Stano and Kyogo to establish that pairing and play those 1-2s and get going. You know, in the first half of games, it's hard to do that because opponents tend to be better organised and there's less space, and you need that hold-up man. But I do see a role for Kyogo off the bench. Whether that's what he came here to do is probably another question. I think he'll want to force his way into the 11, but for now, I think that's his best bet at making an impact off the bench.
100%. There was a lot of talk after that Millwall game in the press box, wasn't there? I know we'd won 4-0 and it was all the highs, but Kyogo obviously had 1 or 2 golden chances, and there was a lot of talk over whether he'll break his duck or whether it's just a sign that at some point we're going to have to
break his ducks.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, like you say, the game opening up for him will potentially be a bit of a blessing in disguise in terms of, is he the most natural finisher of football you're ever going to see? I don't know if he is. I think perhaps sometimes his finishing goes a little bit amiss because of the amount of quality chances he did get up in Scotland, and maybe that was glossed over. Perhaps even by myself, when I looked at the numbers, he was still quite high for big chances missed, but the amount he was getting meant he was still such a prolific goal scorer. But like you say, when the game opens up a little bit more and there's more space to play into, he's definitely got energy. And I think even though he hasn't scored goals, there's no doubting that he makes things happen when he comes on. And again,
I think so as well. I think when him and Stansfield get purring, they can play some nice foot. I think his link-up play is actually quite good. But I think, like I say, I think for now it's probably an option from the bench. But hopefully we can keep him warm and he can maybe come good in the second half of the season, because you know we want to have options there, don't we?
Definitely. I mean, it's been okay for the moment because Stansfield's carried the goal scoring burden at the moment, and Dutch obviously got into the goals on the weekends. But you do feel like goals need to come from Kyogo sooner or later, and confidence, obviously, it's a big factor in strikers, isn't it? And we can see that he's kind of down on his luck a little bit at the moment. But Chris Davies, very adamant in terms of backing him and the belief that he has in him. He wouldn't have brought him here if he didn't have glowing reviews from Brendan Rodgers and Andrew Postecoglou, other people that had worked with him before. So I think there is still plenty to like with the Blues attack, even though that there are still some areas that we might want to address if we're to sustain the top 2 challenge.
Do you think we'll get top 6?
I'm confident that we're going to get top 6, and that might sound mad to say, being as, you know, it's so congested in there, but I still think that at home I would back us against almost anyone. I mean, we've only lost to Hull in the last year and a half, near enough, in a league fixture at home. And that was a crazy, chaotic game, which could have gone either way in the end. I think we will improve away, but whether we can improve away enough to push for the top 2 is the real question for me. It feels very open. I think a lot of people have spoke about that earlier on the pod tonight, in terms of it's almost up for grabs, isn't it? There's not many teams outside of Coventry that are lighting it up. Ipswich have started to come good as of late, but I don't think the Blues are too far behind in terms of both the underlying metrics and what you're seeing with your eyes. We do look like a strong, challenging football team.
Absolutely. Well, James, it's been great to have you on. Thanks for your insight. Look forward to catching up later in the season. Thanks to all my guests this evening. Thanks to my co-host Ollie Mann from Sheffield United Way as well. This has been the Championship Playoff Scramble podcast here on EFL Debate, and we'll see you again next week.